And here we go with another episode of Realty Experts.
Yay!
What's up, Darcy?
Hey, Keith. It is good to be in the same room with you again.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that is an understatement because driving over from Coeur d'Alene this morning, I had to take off my gloves and use my and then count all my fingers. And then I had to take off my shoes and count all my toes of all the cars that were in the ditch because of the snow between here and Coeur d'Alene.
Ooh, really?
No joke. No joke. I was like, holy smokes. So just basically west of Spokane all the way to here. Well, all the way to the east side or west side of Snoqualmie Pass was treacherous, a little bit treacherous. There was 3 jackknife semis and a handful of trucks and cars and assortments of vehicles all strewn about the median and the ditch. And I was just like,
I don't think it was the weather. I think it was they were listening to the news.
10 to 2. What news?
They're listening to the news about rates, and it freaked them out.
What? Are we going there already? Are we just going to jump right into it?
I'm jumping there.
You're
because
jumping.
We know
okay.
that this is freaking people out.
Yes. Freaking people out is one F word that people are using with regards to the rates
true.
right now. Yeah.
So true.
So
I've heard a few others used, but freaking people out. we're gonna go
freaking people out. Yeah. So, do you have any personal 411s or anything?
Oh gosh, it's been a little bit crazy. Got spring break this week for the kiddo.
And how's that going?
And mama's working.
Mama's
working.
I hear you on that. That's how our spring break was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's good. He's got to learn that he has to get drug all over the place with mom.
There you go. I mean, unfortunately, I'm getting well into 2 decades in the work world. How many spring breaks have you gone on? Employment spring breaks.
Employment spring breaks?
Yeah, we don't get them, right? So I think it's good to teach the children that, you know, hey, just because you get spring break doesn't mean mommy and daddy get spring break.
Since I've been a realtor, that would be 0.
0. There's 0. Really quick, my personal testimonial for you, Darcy.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
what did I do?
She has no idea what I'm about to say.
No
So
idea.
this is super fun. So Darcy helped my wife and I sell our first land deal.
I did.
And that was, it was a joy. It was a process.
It was an adventure.
First piece of raw land that I've ever sold.
Yeah.
And it was a great investment, you guys. We bought a house with an extra lot, and we decided to sell the extra lot and make some money off of it. And it was an awesome thing. It was a new process, which I got to say, I have never been through the land selling situation. So that was a little different, and I got to learn a lot of cool things, and I appreciate your expertise and our guidance through that and working with the buyer, especially in these tedious times trying to get permits and all that stuff for the buyer and all that. My heart went out to him, and what a process, but it's a new one that we can put in the books now. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Selling raw land is so different.
Yes.
It is so different than residential, then condos, then commercial.
Townhouses, multifamily, commercial. Land is a completely different animal. It's like, it's a 4-letter word.
It is a 4-letter word.
So anyway, I think, I'm just spitballing here. This is totally spur of the moment.
Yeah.
We should have a land show.
Land ho!
Land ho! So maybe we might put that on the docket, but land is a very interesting thing, and it's a different process altogether. So I think it takes some exploration that we may go there
definitely
in the near
should
future.
Do that. And to that point, today was supposed to be a inspection show.
Yes, for those of you that went back and watched last month's episode, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for the inspector.
Hundreds of you, thousands of you out there.
We appreciate you all.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And we're super excited to have an amazing inspector today on the show, but unfortunately his puppy had an emergency this morning.
Yes. So our heart goes out to Chris and his family.
Chris, we hope the dog's doing okay.
Yes, absolutely. So just have to wait one more month.
Yeah, one more month.
One more month, and Chris will be on the show.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about all the things inspection. And I think given the current market, that inspections may actually be more relevant next month than they are currently.
I think you're exactly right, because we are pivoting.
Well, as the teaser for the show said, times are a changing.
They are.
And the thing that really kicked this party off is, as we've talked about the last 2 months, rates. So we'll jump into the rates. Yeah. So where are we today? Today we are in a really interesting time because rates have gone up almost 2% since the beginning of the year.
It's so crazy.
Let that sit on you for a second. Almost 2% in 3 months.
Have they ever
4
gone
months.
up that fast before?
Yes. One other time when we started quantitative easing and stopping that whole process coming out of the mortgage meltdown, rates jacked up like this. In my professional career. Rates also jacked up like this at the beginning of the 80s when inflation was rampant, similar as of today. And at that time, the federal chair, Volcker, jacked up the short-term interest rates over 2% in 1 year.
Volcker?
Yes.
That's a great word.
Great word.
Learning all
great
sorts
guy.
of things here.
So I see similar situations going on right now in our economic situation going on. We have interest rates going up. We have inflation all over the place. We have a Federal Reserve Board that wants to kind of put the inflation situation in check. And the way that we do that, you guys, is by increasing interest rates, right? So they're doing that. They're increasing interest rates.
But let's define this a little bit because this is one I get asked on a lot, and I'm sure you do too.
Okay.
When we say increasing interest rates, we're not specifically talking about mortgage rates.
Correct. That is correct. We're talking about short-term interest rates for the banks and the short-term interest rate. You guys all know that's tied to your credit card, the prime rate. Right. So those two rates that they're offering are, in essence, going up. So how does that impact us? What they're trying to do is slow down the economy through this increase in interest rate. So number one, the prime rate that's going up is going to increase your credit cards.
Yep.
It's going to increase your home equity lines of credit. It's going to make things a little more painful in those departments. So those of you that have credit cards out there, even though with rates going up, it might be a really good time to look at a cash out refinance and consolidate all that debt. We can jump into that at a later time, but we're not going to go there today. It's still a great viable asset or option. And then basically with the increase in interest rates and the slowing of the economy is ultimately what they want to do, will, help that curb that inflation number going up and up and up and up, right? The other thing that we have some really unprecedented times. In the 80s, we didn't have COVID. We didn't have a skirmish in between the Ukraine and Russia right now. We didn't have the supply chain issues that we have. We didn't have semiconductor manufacturers going out of business or not in business right now to produce these manufacturing things that are in everything today. I don't think short a cup of coffee or your water that you can buy something that doesn't have a microchip in it today. But long story short, rates have gone up. So we wanted to share a quick example of where rates were at the beginning of the year and where rates are right now. So I put together a great tool that I use. It's called Mortgage Coach, and it's a mortgage illustration. So bringing that up on the screen here. Some of you on your phone, sorry about this. This is a little bit small, fine print, but you guys can click on the link. We'll drop the link in the chat here, and you guys can all take a look at it at your leisure. But what I wanted to show you guys is what I think is starting to manifest itself, and we're going to talk about this in 1 second with Darcy. What's starting to manifest itself in the inventory situation that we find ourselves in, that listings are coming on the market and maybe not having as much pomp and circumstance. But if we look at where we were at the beginning of the year in the first column, when we ended 2021, the 30-year interest rate per the Freddie Mac rate survey was 3.11%, right? So that's in column one. Column two is last week's mortgage survey for Freddie Mac rates. We're showing a rate of 4.72%. Yeah, right. And we're continuing that trend up. This mortgage survey comes out every Thursday, guys. So that being the case, I also threw in an example of, well, what if rates went up to 6%, right? So long story short, it's an $800,000 purchase with 20% down. So that loan amount was $640,000, and it equates to a $510 difference between where we were at the end of last year and where we are today. So rates have gone up. They're going to, I think, continue to tick up just a little bit here through the next month or two as the Federal Reserve continues to do two things: increase short-term interest rates as well as deleverage. Because you got to keep in mind, during this whole 2 years worth of COVID, that we were heavily influencing the market through buying mortgage-backed securities and corporate debt and what have you. They were artificially keeping interest rates low to keep the economy moving forward, right? Now we're deleveraging from that position. Unemployment's really low. People are getting back to work and all that good stuff. So they've put into plan this increase in interest rates. What does that say to the buyer out there, right? If I'm a buyer of this $800,000 house and now it's going to cost me $500 more a month, I may be having second thoughts, right? So rate the rates, just to put a pin in it. Rates are going to continue to move up, I think, for the next probably 2-3 months and then level off. What that will ultimately look like, I think rates will find themselves resting in the mid fives.
Okay, that's a prediction.
Yeah.
I personally think that it's going to be a rocky year.
Are you saying it's going to go to 6?
I think it might.
Yeah.
Because already we're seeing some people in the 5s.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it depends on a whole bunch of things. Remember, not everybody gets the same rate.
Right.
It's based on credit score. It's based on, go ahead.
Yeah. This scenario was a 740 credit score, 20% down, conventional Freddie Mac 30-year fixed loan of an owner-occupied single-family residence, right? So any deviation whatsoever, credit score, property type, occupancy type, down payment, any of those deviations will definitely change your score. The higher the risk, the higher the interest rate.
And it's important that you remember exactly what we're talking about, because when you get those little ads that pop up while you're scrolling Facebook or whatever that tell you that tell you rates 1.6. I literally saw one of these like 3 weeks ago, took a picture of it and sent it to him because it's not comparing to apples. That one had somebody buying down like 4 points, which is a lot of money.
Yeah, be careful of the clickbait that's out there. That's the long and short of it.
Don't click.
Number one, don't click. Number two, my friend Ken Perry, who is the owner of the Knowledge Coop, threw this out on Facebook at the end of last week, and I shared it on my wall and all that good stuff. So, guys, there's lots of clickbait out there to try to get you to click that button, because guess what? Everybody is aware that rates have gone up. So the only way that they can actually capture your click and sell your lead off to some mortgage company is by giving you a lead or giving you a rate that actually isn't available today at all.
Not.
So your best course of action is to give me or a local lender that you trust a call and say, hey, this is my situation. Where am I at today in today's market? So things are still moving forward.
Yeah, they are.
I want to talk about one other thing before we jump into the current market.
Yeah, I do want to say though, that you trust is a very, very, very important important thing. If you do not have a loan officer that you trust, obviously you can always call Keith.
Yep.
However, talk to your if you have an agent that you trust, ask them for their lender, because all of the time I'm getting people that are saying they can close in 2 weeks with an FHA, and well, that didn't happen. Lenders.
It was ambitious. They had an ambitious goal.
It was ambitious.
Unfortunately, it was in no way, shape, or form grounded in reality.
Right. So just make sure it's somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Really quick, the other thing, so rates are going up. We all get that. We see that headline. The other headline that I want to kind of speak to right now are applications. we see right now a headline almost every other day, right? Month over month, year over year, applications are down, right? They're talking sometimes about purchase applications. They're sometimes talking about refinance applications, right? So both of the applications are down. I want to be very clear about that. Number one, if you see a headline that says applications are down, go back to what we just talked about for the last 3-4 minutes. Applications are down because rates are up, right? So the application part that is down is the refinance side of the coin. Purchase applications are down a little bit, about 6-7% year over year. But long story short, what I want to be really clear about is there's still plenty of purchase applications going on, people getting pre-approved, people excited to buy houses. That will be more than enough to take care of the local inventory going on, right? So with that, I want to open up a little broader conversation about what is happening right now, because I think there's a new balancing act going on in the mortgage industry and the real estate industry. And that balancing act is what, Darcy?
Yeah. So it's only been a month since we've done this show.
1 month. That's it.
Month.
Time flies and time doesn't fly.
And boy, has change happened in that month. In fact,
Lots of change.
Change has happened significantly in the past week, in the past 2 weeks. It has been massive, massive change for the last month.
Yep.
All right. So what is this looking like? Let's take it from the buyer's perspective first, because I think it's really important that you look at it from 2 different perspectives.
That is so true. So many people get pigeonholed into what situation they're in, and the real estate agent or the real estate market needs 2 parties.
They do.
They need a buyer and a seller.
Yeah. It doesn't work otherwise. And I will say on top of that, though, you need to pay attention to your side. You need to think about the other side. And when things are changing this fast, do not pay attention to the news.
Yes.
Because the news is trying to sensationalize what's happening out there. And oftentimes, they're taking stuff from a month or 2 ago, and we just told you it's changed significantly since then. So I saw headlines on the news the other day about a house going for over $1 million over asking. Well, yeah, that happened like 2 months ago. That didn't just happen, but it just hit the news. So keep that in mind. Okay, now we're thinking of buyers. Buyers, you should be happy.
Yes, very happy.
There is starting to be more inventory. Okay, we have been talking about a lack of inventory for a long time, pretty much all throughout COVID. There's starting to be more inventory because lots of sellers are wanting to jump on top of this market and take advantage. Therefore, they've been getting their houses ready for the spring market, because historically everybody says the best time to sell is spring.
Spring is the best time. Yay.
Well,
drives me nuts.
Sorry. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but we're like everything else, we're in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
So, spring is a good thought, except when everybody's thinking it's time to sell during spring. They all hit the market at the same time, and there's more inventory. Not that there's a lack of buyers. There's plenty of buyers out there, but 2 months ago, we were seeing double-digit offers, so over 10 offers per house on the market. Not everything was selling, but pretty much everything was selling, okay? Today, legitimately, just today, I had a phone call from another agent who I'm very glad that he's doing his job. He was calling around saying, hey, you showed my house. I wanted to get feedback because I have no offers.
The feedback call.
The feedback call.
Wow.
Now, we do feedback calls often, but the day that you're supposed to be receiving offers and you've received 0,
right,
that person's trying to drum up an offer. Okay? Well, looks like my buyers are like, well, if we can get it at asking. Yeah, we just didn't think we could get it at asking. So he probably did drum up an offer there. However, do keep in mind that there's some houses that are getting multiple offers. I'm thinking like 2, 3, 4 possibly. but not what it once was. And there are plenty of houses out there that are getting 0 offers. Okay, so the immediate thing that a buyer says when I call and say, hey, you know that house? I thought you guys really liked it. You decided not to put an offer in. They didn't get any offers. Does that change how you feel about the house? Their immediate thought is, yeah, it does. Can I offer $30,000 low?
Yes. That's exactly where they go.
It's always $30,000 too. I don't know why. And I say, no. I mean, yes, we can, but remember the house has still only been on the market for 4 days. Because if I'm representing the sellers and somebody came to me with that offer, I'd be like, hey, thank you so much. We're just going to wait and see what happens.
Yep.
Sellers don't have to buy. They do not have to accept your offer. Even if it's above asking, they don't have to accept your offer. So keep that in mind as the buyer. Just because it goes past its review date or because it doesn't have a review date doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're in a buyer's market.
Right.
Because we're not. We have been in the most crazy seller's market we have seen
Ever. I've never seen it like that.
Right. And we're switching up to just kind of crazy, not insane.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so let me put definitions around this.
Kind of crazy. Yeah, what does kind of crazy mean and not?
Let me put definitions
insane.
around this.
Let's start with insane.
Well, I'm going to start with neutral.
Oh, neutral. Okay, neutral market.
A balanced market where buyers and sellers both have the same amount of power.
I feel like I'm at yoga class right now.
Namaste. Okay, so when it's a neutral, balanced market, traditionally we're talking about, that means about 3 months worth of inventory. 3 months.
3 months. Well,
3 to 4 months.
Okay, let's quantify that in days because I think we've 3 months means 90 days.
That means, 90 days. Okay, so that means months of inventory is if you didn't put any more houses on the market, it would take, and we keep on selling at about the same absorption rate, it would take about 90 days for all of the inventory to be sold out.
And that's neutral.
That's neutral, right?
Not buyer, not seller.
So in the insanity that we've been for a seller's market, we have artificially made it longer than it could have been. We could have had it 1 day or 2 days, but we have artificially pushed it out to about 5 to 6 days because we had reviews on offers.
Yeah.
Okay?
Who came up with that? Let's list it on Thursday and wait until Monday to, who was that?
Well, it makes sense because
totally does.
Because it makes sense if you're representing the seller.
Yeah, so that's been the seller's MO. The seller would bring it on Thursday afternoon, say it's open house all weekend long, and then look at offers Monday or Tuesday.
Right. So that way you have multiple offers to compare to each other. Now, mind you, if we get an offer on a house on, let's say, Thursday night or Friday morning, the agent absolutely has to present that offer to the seller.
Is this on? Do agents know that? Because this seems to be a debatable thing in the past 2 years, but yes, they have to submit that offer.
But what that submit looks like, is I send that offer onto my seller. Hey, I just sent you an offer. This is kind of what it looks like. Would you like to review the offer now, or would you like me to go back with instructions saying we're waiting till the review period?
Yes.
Or would you like me to call everybody else that has shown the house and see if anybody else is willing to put in an offer now so we can have multiple offers now? Okay, so there's options in there. Okay, so that number has been artificially pushed out to like 5-6 days. Right now, even though inventory's up, I would say we're at like 8 days.
Yeah.
10 days.
8 days.
It's still ridiculous. We are nowhere near 90 days.
Nowhere near 90 days.
So buyers, it's much better for you, but it is in no way a buyer's market.
Correct.
A buyer's market starts to be when there's like over 6 months of inventory.
That is correct.
Okay.
So if a buyer is going to look at the market today, what advantages, assuming inventory levels stay this way, because it could change by next month when we have our show again,
It could change next week,
right.
let's face it.
So maybe a buyer gets what advantage right now with this listing going past the offer review date? What maybe
Okay,
can
so
they
there's
use?
a few things that can happen with this, and things ratchet back right now quickly, but it's kind of you peel one layer at a time. Okay, so we have been in such a crazy seller's market that people have been waiving everything. If I back out on this, you 100% get all of my earnest money from the time I sign this going forward,
Regardless why.
It doesn't matter why.
Inspection, title, financing, all that.
They've been waiving everything. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. That's what's been happening. So the first thing that we're going to see really coming back is people keeping their finance contingencies. Yes, that'll make you happy. Okay, a finance contingency.
You see all this gray hair? That is because everybody for the last 3 years has been waiving their finance contingencies, man.
Last year's
as a lender, man, that the stress levels through the roof because we need to perform. We have to perform for our borrowers. Otherwise, they just losing $100K here and there. That's not cool.
So the finance contingency, let's be clear on what this is. You have a finance contingency in place. It means that if the bank will not give you the money for a reason that is not your fault as the buyers.
Yep.
And you still have that finance contingency in play. That means you can get out of the contract and get your earnest money back, no penalty.
Yeah. Typical things, appraisal comes in low and you don't want to, and the
That's
negotiation.
actually a different contingency, although it's wrapped into it.
It's wrapped into it. Also like title issues that come up.
Yeah. So a title issue that the bank will not lend on it.
Yeah, that's correct.
You lose your job unexpectedly.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes we saw that happen a lot towards the beginning of COVID.
Beginning of COVID, that there were a lot of folks under contract waiving finance contingencies that got furloughed or just lost their job, period.
Yeah.
And, they lost their earnest money.
And earnest money is, in the past, has been typically 3 to 5%. However, with the crazy market that we've been, I've seen earnest monies as high as 25% of the purchase price.
Yeah. Cue the Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Yeah, that's completely where we were. So we're going to see the earnest money start to dial it back to a much more reasonable amount, in my opinion, along with that finance contingency in there.
So buyer gets protection back.
Yes. Or pieces of protection.
Some.
We might even be able to do an inspection after you get into contract. What? I know, it's insane.
I don't have to pre-inspect or just waive it completely, hoping that the house is in sound quality and condition?
I had a pre-inspection yesterday, which we had to do because we knew there was going to be multiple offers.
Pre-inspection means?
Pre-inspection means the buyer paying for and performing an inspection on the house before putting in the offer.
Yeah.
Okay. We had one happening yesterday. We finished the inspection. We're going over all of the results of the inspection, and we get a phone call from the other agent that says, we just got an offer in for a lot more than the price, and they're waiving inspection, so we're going to go with that one.
Ouch.
My person's just out there, their money for inspections, right? Oops.
Is that for Honda?
Oh, no. Well, all right. It depends on the inspector.
Oh.
It's usually
join us next month.
Right, join us next month. It's usually like $400 to $600 or something like that. My inspector's awesome, and with pre-inspections, he only charges. Well, we'll let him
join us next month.
Join us next month. Right. Okay, so we didn't get that one. Anyways, okay, so this is from the buyer perspective. There is going to be a smidge bit more protection for buyers, and if inventory keeps growing, that protection is going to grow larger for buyers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the seller side.
Before you do that, protections first and then price. Is that kind of how things work?
Exactly.
So we're not going to go straight to the throat with a $50,000.
No. Now, if a place has been on the market for like 30 days or something like that, you can start to go in a little bit lower.
Okay.
Or if they're just, the seller is clearly over asking, I mean, you can go in and offer whatever you want.
Gotcha. Yeah. So buyer gets their protections and contingencies back.
Yeah.
Then can look at price.
Yes.
Based on how long it's been on the market. Okay, good.
But since the meltdown, we haven't had a buyer's market.
No. Yeah.
And in this area, traditionally, it goes from seller's market to buyer's market.
Yeah.
To seller's market. And the seller's market period seems to be really, really, really long.
There's all sorts of inventory issues that we can talk about for another show, but that's really the main driver.
Okay.
So now let's talk about... Darcy, I want to sell my house. What does that look like as a seller?
Well...
It's kind of like a pre-consultation.
Okay. So remember before when I mentioned that stuff about news?
Yeah.
Sellers are perking up to all of this. And I know it's been going on for a while. Like, this should not be news to anybody that the market's been a seller's market. But it's springtime, so people are like, yeah, we could maybe move somewhere else, and we could downsize or whatever it might be. I think we could sell our house. And their perspective oftentimes is what the news is stating, which is, oh my gosh, you can sell your house for $1 million over asking right now. Sorry, seller. Even, houses that I put on the market last week or I'm putting on the market this week, I talked to them, 2 months ago about putting their house on the market. That was a different conversation than it is today.
Yeah.
Timing really does matter in this business. And when you have a seller that has not done a lot of real estate transactions in their lives, which many people have only done a handful of them. I mean, this is not something that happens frequently in somebody's life.
No.
The perception is, well, I'll put it on for whatever I want and people will bring me offers and we'll just negotiate. That's not how things work. We haven't been in that market for quite some time. So if you have a house that, let's say I say, looks like we should price it between here and here, and you decide to price it way up here.
Yeah.
The reason why nobody's going to come look at your house isn't necessarily because it's not worth that. It's because the perception is that they're never going to be able to get it for that price. They're going to have to offer more for it.
Yep.
So instead of looking at that place that they can afford, they're looking down here with the intention of going up a little bit. And that's a tough one for sellers to swallow. In addition, I can't promise you anything. I can do so much marketing. I can make your house look gorgeous. The pictures are going to look phenomenal. The video is going to be great. We're going to have the 360 walkthrough so we can make sure that people out of town can really see what it feels like to be in that home, because there's a lot of people that move here from out of state, out of country, and buy sight unseen. However,
been there, done that.
I can't force people to put an offer on a house.
Yes.
Can't make a horse drink.
Well, you got to understand that psychology. I think it applies much more on the seller side to understand the other side's psychology than it does on the buyer side. Because right now the buyer's just thrown into, like, I think the Hunger Games dome, and they're just trying to find a house 100%. And not die, right? I think the seller needs...
The odds are in their favor now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The seller really needs to take a pragmatic approach. And so often what bubbles up to us on the buy side is we have conversations of like, hey, I see that house priced at 1.2, but the 3 houses that have sold in that neighborhood in the last 6 months are only at 1, right? At $1 million. So you, Mr. Buyer, are you ready to come in with that difference between the $1 million and the 1.2? Just because the last one sold at this number and you think yours should sell at that number as a seller, I understand where you're coming up with that, but that's not how the world works. In my opinion, what do you think about that strategy of and every listing's different, right? But I hear you talk about it, and the strategy of maybe like looking at the neighborhood comps. Yeah. It's amazing how many listing agents I talk to that haven't even done a market analysis of the listing they put on.
So,
blows my mind.
For example, after this show, I am talking to some sellers because we're putting their house in the market this week.
What does that look like?
So what the conversation looks like is I bring up houses on the MLS, and I legitimately talk them through like, okay, the houses that I'm bringing up, I'm trying to get as close to yours physically as possible, as close with the criteria as possible, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square feet, style, the amount of land. But remember, we've had a really, really low inventory. So there's not a lot out there to compare it to. So in this particular house, I've got things that sold for $1 million, and I've got things that have sold for 1.8.
Woo.
That is a big difference.
That's a spread, my friends.
Right.
A spread.
That is a big difference. So then we have to go down and compare
spread.
things. I know, it's crazy.
Holy crap.
So then we have to go down and compare things and maybe make the distance a little bit. Instead of looking at 1 mile, we're looking at 3 miles away, and lots of discussion in there. I do not price houses. A good realtor never prices houses. A good realtor makes all the information available to the sellers and talks through the different scenarios so the seller can decide what they want to list the property as. Because I'm not the one that lives with the results. The seller's the one that lives with the results. Okay, so if you were going to list your property and we were going to sit down and have a conversation, I'm going to show you on my screen all the properties out there that are...
I like
it's
it.
blank.
It's blank. It's turned off.
All the properties out there that are like your place and what they've gone for and how long they've stayed on the market. And I'll do the research to find out how many offers they had, how many people came through. And we'll talk about a few months ago versus a few weeks ago versus what's happening right now, what I see coming in the future. And then you decide on the price.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the one thing that I tell people, I want you to choose a price that is low enough to get as many people as we can through the door, but is high enough that you will accept it if we only get one offer. And then we play some scenarios out and talk things through. And this is a very, very hard conversation to have, as most conversations in real estate are. And there's a lot of emotions for sellers in it because sellers have to remember to take the home that they've made out of this house. They're going to bring that home with them. They're going to bring that warm, cozy feeling with them. And we're just going to turn it into a house that everybody can see themselves in.
Yep.
Okay. That it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. So, sellers, now's not the time to be greedy. If you get a fair offer,
Amen.
You should really consider it. Do I think appreciation's going to happen? Absolutely. But appreciation doesn't care what the seller wants, and appreciation doesn't care what the buyer wants. It's got its own mojo going on.
Yeah, the market's going to do what the market's going to do.
Yeah.
The kiss of death that I've heard from you and all the other agents that I network with is if you miss the price, when you initially list that listing, it's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So
because then you're chasing the market.
Yeah.
Because people think it's damaged goods. Right. It sits on the market more than 2 weeks.
God, that sounds so crazy to me.
It does,
yeah,
but that means you've mispriced it. So
yeah.
Traditionally, if 15 days, if it's been on the market for 15 days, or it's had over 15 people come see it and you haven't gotten an offer, then it's mispriced. Because people are very picky in what they go see. You know, they're not going to 300 houses. Mm-hmm. They've picked out, hey, we're going to go to these 4 houses today.
Well, and in this market, there's only 4 houses to choose from,
or 2,
or 2,
which
and then
is getting more.
And then if a buyer or the buyer pool visits your house and they're not interested, and there's only 3 to choose from, that may be an indication on the seller side of the coin that maybe I'm a little high on this asking price.
I see that all the time where there's 3 houses on the market in a certain area. And all the buyers are the same. They are all the same price point. They're all looking for the same thing. One house gets 5 offers and the other houses get nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So as a buyer, you need to be strategic. Do you have a shot at getting that house? Because if not, and you're happy with this one,
right,
maybe you go for the second one. There's lots of strategy in this. I could talk about it all day.
That's
all
what we
night.
do. And
It is what we do.
And I mean, the examples that we bring in are real life experience, you guys. And we value sharing that with you.
Yeah.
All of you out there, whether you're on the buy side, the sell side, or you're just sitting on the sideline saying, well, what am I going to do with my real estate life? You know, if you can learn from our experience and implement that into your game plan, you're going to be that much further ahead than the next buyer or seller. So definitely.
All of you people that waived your inspection in order to get your house, like, okay, you made a choice. That's fine. But I highly, highly, highly recommend you hire an inspector now to go through your house and do an inspection, because that inspector isn't just for a purchase or a sale.
Point.
I mean, we had one come into our house recently. Well, my inspector, Chris.
Yeah.
And a good inspector is going to give you the inspection report back in a little bit of a different manner. It's more like a guide on these are the things that you need to do in order to make sure your house stays in good condition. So you get a list, and oftentimes you can ask them like, hey, what's the priority order on this? So when we got our inspection back, my husband and I sat and looked at it and we said, okay, these are the things that we need to get done. These are the ones that need to get done right now. Let's go ahead and bite these off one at a time.
Right.
So please do that. And my example for this is yesterday, I told you about this pre-inspection that I did with the clients, right? So we're doing this pre-inspection. We found two, they're not major concerns yet, but if you let them go, they are going to be major concerns.
Gotcha.
The seller very reasonably has no idea that these are a problem. The buyer, the other buyer that got the place, waived their inspection contingency.
I don't think they're going to know about it.
They're not going to know about it.
They're not going to know about it.
If they don't have a good inspector come and do those inspections.
Oh my gosh, that's huge. I never put that together when we were looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
It's a really big deal. Like this person.
That is great advice. That is advice worth the price of admission to today's show. Is if you did waive your inspection, you should still go get an inspection.
Absolutely.
Holy cow.
And we're going to talk next time about what to look for in an inspector and everything.
In an inspector and in an inspection.
Yes.
The tour and the shun.
Yes.
So
they're very important. But those are going to be coming up more frequently. And if you waived them, please, it's worth the money. It's 100%
just
worth
flash
the money.
that on the screen.
Oof.
If you waived inspection, go get one still.
Yes.
Post-close. Yeah, that's huge. We literally could go on. If you guys have any questions throughout any of our conversation, please throw it in the chat, whether it's on Pitch Mortgage Team or the Hardy Realty Group. Let's have them out.
Hardy Group.
Hardy Group, RE. Thank you. Sorry. Throw them out there. We will answer any and all questions. And if you're watching this after we're done with the live and you're just scrolling through and watching this later, throw the question, comment in the chat. We will answer them as well.
Or just reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you.
DM us, give us a call, shoot us an email, all that good stuff. So buy side, sell side.
Yeah.
Long story short, times are changing.
Big time.
It's I don't think there's panic, in my opinion. There's no panic on either side. It's just that your application to the market on both sides of the coin just is a little different right now than it's been for the past consistently 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very different than the last few months specifically. And more importantly, it's changing week to week. So you have to have a realtor and a lender that are updating you appropriately. Mm-hmm. We were just talking a little bit earlier about somebody who got an approval letter back in December.
Yeah.
And they put in an offer this week, waived everything. Unfortunately, things have changed significantly rate-wise and everything, so they no longer qualify.
Yeah, and tax-wise, because taxes are due
by
this week, and their tax situation had changed since we last talked to them in December.
Right.
So, yes, things change all the time. And so definitely have a good pulse on where things are because, I mean, you got to keep in mind really quick on this same point, a pre-approval is good for 90 days, 3 months, right? So if we rewind 3 months ago, that's the beginning of the year. Rates were 3%. Now they're high 4s to low 5s, depending on your scenario. So that's a significant change in the debt to income ratio, or one of the key qualifying aspects of your mortgage. So, we definitely have to be talking at a high level. And what I see is the buyers are still going. The buyers that I'm working with, you guys, they still want to buy a house.
Absolutely.
They love the idea of buying a house. They're just changing the target of house that they're buying, right? Instead of buying that $700,000 house, they're now looking at the $600,000 market, right? And what does that do? That maybe moves them geographically. Maybe they're not looking at North King, South Snohomish. Maybe they're looking down in Pierce now, right? So there will be some different trends that happen throughout the region, and both here in the Tri-County area, statewide, and regionally. So it's going to be really fun. Stay well connected.
Yes. And if your agent isn't regularly asking you, like, hey, have you gotten an update on your loan from your lender about what, if we put an offer for this much, what your monthly payment would look like this week?
Mm-hmm. This week. Yeah.
It truly is. Every single time I put in an offer right now, I'm sending something out to the lender saying, hey, could you make sure you let the buyer know?
Shameless plug time.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a shameless plug here. Loan Depot, we rolled out a program called Lock and Shop.
Oh, yeah. This
right?
is great.
So,
you need to hear about this.
You guys this is how you can protect, if you're an active buyer, this is how you guys can protect yourself from rate increases over the next 90 days, right? So how this works is you come and get pre-approved and you say, hey, on the pre-approval, I know we don't have an address, because typically you have to have the address to lock your loan, right? If you don't have that address, we can still lock your loan. We can lock it for 60 days and give you guys a window of 60 days to go shop and have zero impact on the rate environment.
And what does this cost?
$500.
Completely worth it. And if you get into contract in those 60 days and close before 90 days out,
$500 is applied to your closing costs.
Right. So you get that money back.
So it costs you upfront a reservation fee of $500 to reserve your lock, so you could go out there and shop carefree of any rate impact and environment. And wait, there's more. One other thing.
It slices, it dices.
Set it and forget it. It really is a set it and forget it. Anyway, if the rates go down, right? Everybody's like, oh yeah, we want to protect against the upside. It has a free float down. And I'm not talking about floating down the river through Carnation. I'm talking about if the rates get better, we bring you down to the current market rate. So you're protecting the upside. Yeah. You're protected against, you're protecting the downside of rates going up. You get to the benefit if the rates come down. We're going to float you down. So it's going to cost you $500. If we look at the illustration between the end of December 2021 and now, it's costing people $500 a month.
I know.
More in mortgage payment. And you could do a $500 investment to lock that loan for 60 days and shop and not have to worry about
There's a lot of cool products out there right now, but I really like that one.
Have conversations. Yeah. Conversations are powerful, my friends.
They definitely are.
You know what time it is, Darcy? I see we have 10 minutes left in the show. You know what time it is?
What time is it?
Mythbusters.
Yes. Ooh, hey. Yeah. Mythbusters.
Hey.
Let's get ready for this. Yeah, I think we adjusted it so they can go on the outside of our... No, this isn't happening.
Mine is adjusted.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Myth busting is happening because we have our safety protection on.
Yeah.
And I have to say, shout out to my friends over at Cycle Bar CDA. Casey saw our video.
Ooh.
And she saw our Mythbusters
Casey.
video. And she's like, you guys were wearing your goggles and your protective wear, so I had to watch it. And she goes, I learned something. And that's what it's all about. Success,
Yay,
Mythbuster success. So
we'd love to hear that.
Darcy, you made mention about people buying houses sight unseen. And the question that I want to pose to you is that all those beautiful listing pictures on the websites and those virtual tours, they're just really what the house presents.
They're amazing.
I can lock, stock, and barrel just bank on those listing pictures. No?
No. Okay.
Wait.
So.
But marketing pieces, I'm not supposed to trust them?
I know. Isn't that amazing?
No.
Don't trust them. So if you really, really, really like the look of a property in the video, in the walkthrough, everything, and you're able to get to the house, physically able to get to the house, do it. If you are not physically able to get to the house, send somebody that you super trust with your realtor. And if you don't have anybody in the area that you super trust to go with your realtor, then have your realtor do that. Go with you on FaceTime or whatever system you want to use to in real time see the place. And if that is not a possibility because you don't have the reception where it is, have your realtor take videos and narrate what they're seeing and everything and send you those videos. If absolutely everything your realtor is saying is, oh my God, this is amazing and it's the best in the world, then maybe you should ask some deeper questions and talk to people that are going to give you both sides of the story, because there's a plus and a negative to every single property.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I share my story?
Yeah, I would love to.
So Melanie and I, we relocated to Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Right? No secret there. We bought our... Hey.
It's just, yeah.
I like it. I do miss you, Darcy. I come over every month and hang out with my peeps here in Seattle and the Tri-County area. And, you know, I was that buyer.
You were.
I was that buyer. So I had my agent over there, Jerry. Shout out to Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
Had Jerry walk through the property for us. That market is not as hot as it is over here. It's hot. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
Don't get me wrong at all. But Jerry mentioned in our walkthrough that the floor was a little squeaky. And in our inspection, they mentioned that the master suite floor is squeaky. I'm curious if you can tune in. Do you know what made it squeaky, Darcy?
Well, there's many things that can make it
What
squeaky.
do you think made it squeaky? Because I found out why it was squeaky.
Interesting. Okay. So the things that run through my head
Yep.
when I hear squeaky floors are, one, they're using nails instead of screws.
Okay.
Number two, they did not use the glue properly to get the floor to actually be down.
Adhere to the joist.
Yep. And there are these special things that you can put through a carpet to actually do better.
We're going to get there.
What was it?
It's a 1980s build house, and they used particle board. They use particle board as the subfloor upstairs.
Oh, yay.
So everybody that walks around upstairs, you can hear the floor squeak, 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 because they did use nails. And that
Not
particle
screws.
boards and
hold.
So it squeaks, right? We still bought the house. We love the house. Don't get me wrong. That was something that we explored a little bit more with Jerry. And from a distance, we decided that it was an okay risk tolerance based on what we knew about the house at the time. Love the house. It talking to some floor folks, it's a relatively easy fix, so I'm not too worried about it. But I had a trusted person, the real estate agent. We had the luxury of doing an inspection, and we knew we were in full disclosure. So I think my point is, if you do buy from a distance and afar and never step foot in the house, you have to feel deep enough that you trust the process, that you understand what you're buying. And if you don't, buy the ticket, take the car ride, do what you have to do to go check it out and feel that deep trust that it's the right buy.
And that's been really hard in this market that things have been flying off the shelf. So we do have a common client that was moving up here from California that he flew up one time and met with me, and I showed him houses, and then he brought his whole family. They drove up here, the whole family, so I could look at houses with them. Aww. And by spending those 2 weekends with him and 1 weekend with his family, they got to know me enough to trust me. So they didn't feel like they had to fly up here at a moment's notice every single time.
Yep.
Which was a great way to handle it, because you have to have somebody you trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So super important. I mean, there's lots of listing. Well, you were making mention that there's a lot of catfishing pictures out there.
Yeah. So let me explain exactly why, though.
Okay.
I mean, yes, there's
tell me.
How pictures are done are quite amazing these days. If you and I take our camera, be it a phone or a digital thing, or 35 millimeter for that matter.
There you go.
And take a picture.
Old school.
And there's a window, okay?
Okay.
It's going to be super, super bright in the window and dark in the house, or it's going to be super nice and bright in the house and dark in the window. Modern day, people with the good technology that do the pictures for us real estate agents have a camera where they sit there and they change the aperture. So I think that's the right word. So you have different amount of light at different points, but the exact same photo, right? And then they use a computer program to blend it. So you can see what it looks like if you're in person in the house inside and what it would look like to look out that window. So that's one of the reasons why they look so perfectly beautiful.
Oh, look at this.
Here's a great example. You and I could not get that picture to look that way with our camera. We just couldn't. Okay, you need to have this type of program. So there's that. Oh, the other really big thing. You can't tell smell from a photo.
There's no scratch and sniff?
There's no scratch.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many houses that we've walked into.
Is Jamie listening? Jamie, are you out there? My sister.
That would be his sister. Yep, she had one of those houses.
Yep.
I can't. Pets.
2 of those houses. Hey, actually, Jamie, we need to talk about that. Your reoccurring theme of buying houses. Is there an odor? I love you.
I will take it. People don't think their house smells.
Correct.
For good reason. They've gotten used to it.
They live there.
As a realtor, it's my job to go in and say, "Hey guys, this is an awesome house. It smells."
Oh my gosh, you said that so sweetly and just went.
I don't say it that harsh. I do go in and I go from room to room. And one of the things that I am assessing is the smell. And I say, okay, so you've got some dogs. We've got carpet and the walls haven't been painted in a while. And it does smell like dog. I'm sorry.
Yep.
This is going to affect things.
Yes, it does.
Right. And dogs is not the only one. Obviously, we are all used to the old. We don't see it that often
Cats
anymore,
too.
Dogs, cats, birds can. I had a
at-home caterers that smoke all their meats in the house.
And smoking.
It is smoking.
Like,
yeah,
all sorts of things that you could be smoking. Along with, I can usually tell when I walk in if a home was ever a hoarder house.
Interesting.
In fact, I can usually tell from the driveway, but you can't always tell from the pictures.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because somebody cleaned it all up or somebody flipped the house and it looks sparkly and fresh now. It doesn't always smell it. So these are things that you need somebody that you trust to do. And why do not rely on pictures alone.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so that's our myth.
So that's our myth. Yeah, you don't want people to have that walking into the tire shop reaction when they walk into your house. Yeah, y'all been there when you're getting your tires changed. You walk into the tire shop and you just get hit by the smell of rubber. You don't want that.
No.
That's not a good first impression. No. So, right on. Well, there you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
Times are changing.
Times are.
Rates have gone up. Market may be slowing down. And I want to give a really quick illustration of the slowdown that we're talking about. Instead of going 50,000 miles an hour, we're going 30,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, we're no longer going the speed of light.
Yeah. We're just
which is not 50,000 miles. Don't quote me on that one.
Yeah, no, it's
we're no longer going the speed of light.
Right. Still a fast market.
Still a very fast market. It's still definitely a seller's market. But buyers are starting to wiggle their way into a little bit of power in the market.
Go buyers. It's your birthday.
A little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I like what we did there. Cool. So next month, we are going to rebook our great, amazing inspector, Chris.
Yeah.
And he will be back next month with us here in studio.
I'm so excited for him to come in. Because he's got pictures and stories and you know he's going to bring the good stuff.
Yeah. And if you guys have any questions, hit us up. tune in.
And questions for the inspector.
Yeah, not for us.
It's cool if you give us questions.
Yeah, you can ask us questions anytime. But for Chris, if you have inspector-related questions, whether you're an existing homeowner that should be re-inspecting your house, that's a great tip, or you're a prospective buyer or a prospective seller. I'm sure sellers ask you this question all the time, Darcy. Should I inspect my house? We could ask Chris that question.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the questions we were going to ask him today. So stay tuned till next month when we're going to answer that question. So
thank you so much for coming by.
Yes.
We're thrilled to see you again. Have a good month.
Have a good one.